All right, guys, welcome to episode 7 of The Refinery. Today we have Givonn Jones joining us from sunny Augusta, Florida, while it's cold and dark and dreary up here in Boston. So, Givonn, welcome. Happy to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Augusta, Georgia, though.
Not Augusta, Maine.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, it's too cold up there.
So why don't you let us know what you're up to, what you've been working on, what gets you excited?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So my name is Givonn Jones. Just want to put it out there. Been working in biz dev and sales for the last 20 years. And I've seen so many changes when you talk about technology, how it's changing. Going from software as a service from the early years back before Salesforce even got their ground or came up with this cloud. And then now, currently, for the last 10 years, I've been in the cybersecurity sectors and also CRM sectors. But what most gets me excited, working with smaller companies and working with startups, early stage startups, is just seeing passion and seeing how much work it really does take to take an idea, which I look at it as just like a baby. You take that idea and you try to get it to market. It's a great dream, but it takes so many moving parts to even get it going. So, and that's the part I like to roll up my sleeves and jump in there. I see a lot of changes when you talk about business development, the role itself. I'm even wondering, is there such thing anymore? When you talk about the business development reps and the business development managers. But I'm all excited, man. Good.
So let's talk biz dev. And so, you've been through it for the whole, like you said, the whole cycle from coming up pre-Salesforce all the way to now. And the things that I'm seeing are that we have a lot of startups, less than 1 million ARR, just raised, Series A, trying to get into market and are taking the same go-to-market strategy that Salesforce put together in the late 90s, early 2000s, and running that play and burning a lot of money. It's not as effective anymore for a lot of companies. And so talk to me about that. Like what do you see in the market across the board? Like what's the popular way to do it? What's the most common? And if they were going to switch to something different that you think might be better, what would they do?
That's a good point. And I'm glad we started off with that because the basis of predictive, if you look at the market and where Salesforce started, Aaron Ross and that movement, and saying, okay, well, this is the blueprint. Salesforce was the blueprint for anybody coming into the cloud. Then you had the Rackspaces of the world. But that predictive revenue model, I believe it's shifting on its head because now people are trying to figure out, okay, what is it that's going to drive this engine? What type of fuel do we need to put in this engine? And so when you have, again, so many methodologies, and I call them tactics, but the tried and true that I see is create a great team, have a great product, give great service, and just deliver, give that away, give your service away. And then once your customers start talking about your service, then that traction comes along. Because I believe, again, software as a service, the service part is the most important part. And people are starting to realize that even MSPs, managed service providers, when you talk about going to market, what's going to differentiate you from the person down the street is going to be how you brand yourself inside of the marketplace. And again, going back to that same revenue predictive model there, if in fact you're looking for a way to guarantee your position in the marketplace, get your name out. After you get your name out, make sure you stand behind your claims that you want to put out there. So, and that's what I'm seeing. Those that really put it out there, they're going to be around.
So you're seeing instead of or in parallel to the traditional, we'll call it traditional business development where you got SDR, AE, go to market that way, you're seeing a shift. Or maybe potentially, maybe not a across the board shift, but maybe an opportunity where companies, instead of doing that and trying to sell the service, because you're talking software, right? The cost of goods on the software, besides the headcount service to deliver it, is actually pretty low. It's not like you're selling a physical good where every time you give it away, you lose a lot of money. And so what you're seeing is, because you'd say in a lot of cases, like getting to 1 million or whatever 1 million would be in terms of market penetration is a really hard, it's a really big step for companies, right? And so if you can get the first 10 to 50 companies, maybe 100, depending on how much your service costs to get to that level, one, you'll learn a bunch about the market. It's basically like a beta, right? It's like a real life, real thing. And if you're able to deliver on that, then people talk, right? And so like I remember the last 3 or 4 SaaS products that I bought, specifically in the lower ACVs, have all come through a word of mouth referral from someone that I trust.
Yeah.
And so no matter, I mean,
exactly right.
there's a lot of stuff coming through on social ads and trade shows and, you know, cold calls and cold emails and all the different stuff. But it seems like the best channel, and I think this is intuitive to a lot of people, is that delivering a good service and letting the people that you deliver it to tell other people is by far the best marketing channel, especially when it's authentic, not forced, completely unsolicited. Authentic I think is a key there. And so I really like that. So go one layer deeper. Like, so how would someone actually do that?
Well, and here's the thing, I'm not going to discredit the model, the business model of having SDRs and have that handoff. We talked about that earlier, where marketing has a handoff, sales have a handoff. But somewhere along the line, unless you don't, if you have a great, very effective process, and you also have a manager that knows the system, that's awesome. But what happens is, in the pipeline, you do have leakage. Same thing on the marketing side. That data that you get from the primary resource, you're going to lose it if it keeps handing off. So you better have either good logistics, and that system works great. But what I would prefer to say is, just like you said, build a great product with the outcome in mind already in the product, bake it in. Not only that, but from the business development portion of the business, have good partners around you that will support your business long term, and then at the same time, put it in the market where it belongs. Distribution. That's the first thing I would consider. Where are you going to distribute your product itself to the people that need it? A lot of people take the wrong angle. They want to go direct all the time to get the quick and easy, low-hanging fruit is what they would call it. But sometimes you don't fit there, especially in a B2B market, oversaturated market at that. Yep. If you are going back to what you said as far as, you know, contribution to the community and giving your product or giving your service away, I love that idea. I mean, that's the easiest way. I think Dan Martell was a huge advocate of that. Put it in the market, give it away, but don't give the house away, right? Give it at a discount and get the feedback. That'll be version 1. And then once you get the feedback, then you have something to implement on the next version. But what I see is a lot of, especially when you talk about under $1 million, or I'll go back to numbers if we're talking units here. I look at, let's go to from 0 to 1,000. Let's not even say 10,000. Let's see how we do with 0 to 1,000 first. How did you do with that branch? And then get the feedback. From 1,000 to 10,000, it's going to be a whole different feedback because your service delivery is going to be different. So all this comes back to play. How are you going to deliver your service to those end users once you start scaling out, once you start getting that traction in the marketplace? Going back to what you said, the reason that the SDR is so important in certain circles, simply for information gathering. If you're going to get that data and pass it on, that's awesome. But if you're just doing it just to set appointments, it's a waste of time, I believe.
So I do think that's the important point, right? So if you're using the SDR as basically a person that does qualification
right
before discovery,
absolutely,
right? Like that, I think that's one of the places where it breaks down. Like you're coming in and you're asking me questions about, do I have budget? Can I make the decision? Who should be involved? And I don't even know what problem we're solving. Like I think that's one thing that people have super backwards. Another thing is that they're just using it if they're just using it to book meetings, I know that that model doesn't work. At least the economics don't work unless you're selling a super high value, a super expensive service. I get that it might be able to work there. I don't, but I have the data in companies that are less than 100K ACV in the companies that I've worked with. And I know if you use those people to set the meetings, then your win rate is going to be somewhere between 0.5% and 7%, depending on how well you can do it. And so, but I think what people don't recognize in that piece is like, oh wow, we're winning at 7%. That's good. The problem is that you need so many sales reps in order to do the amount of demos and sales processes to facilitate that 7%, that your sales team is incredibly expensive and burns, and it becomes, in a lot of cases, a cost center. And so,
Absolutely.
and so it's not that model. I think that people get confused when I say that doesn't work. It's just not, everything works to some extent, right?
Sure.
Everything
We're
works
talking
to,
efficiency.
but there are ways to do it that are better. I think is the nuance. So I'm going to continue to push on that one, because I've yet to, and I invite someone to have me at their office and show me a system from an SDR AE perspective with a product less than 100K ACV, where they are consistently, efficiently churning out revenue without significant marketing support.
Well, you're gonna get a lot of guys that's gonna hit you up on that challenge.
I hope so, man. I don't think that I'm right, but my experience so far tells me that I need to see something different in order for my mind to be changed. I've been at tens of companies that have tried this path, and zero have had it work the right way.
Right.
Okay, so let's jump. I think one thing that we haven't covered on the show yet, and I think you can definitely crush this for us, is sales enablement. And so, like, what's going on in the SaaS marketplace today for sales enablement? Like a couple of things to get this started. Like, when should a company think about that as a full-time role? Like, at what point should they think about that? And then, like, what is it? What are they doing?
Okay. I think it's two parts, and I'll deal with it just like you said. When does it become a full-time role? And I believe timing is everything with that. It becomes a full-time role when you've experimented, you're beyond just testing the marketplace. A lot of companies, they hire too prematurely when they have someone that needs sales enablement, and they haven't even spec'd out where the product belongs. So I'll go back to my own experience. I did 7 years when you talk about having ancillary services going to hosting providers like GoDaddy's and the one-in-ones, where you have a hosting package, and then you have ancillary services that are tucked in or burned into their hosting package. Or they can be just add-on services altogether inside of a marketplace. So you would bring a guy in to either implement, meaning he's a programmer, or he's a marketer, to where he's spreading the news or spreading what this is, or doing specs when you talk about how the marketplace looks competitively. Chances are you're not going to get any type of pull through from that if you do it too early on. Mm-hmm. So my thing is, you create demand first. And that goes back to our point where we say, hey, look, the only way you're going to create demand is to do content marketing around what this is, where it's at, and why do I need it? What problems do it solve? So once the content marketing is in place, you can then have people ask for or make the demand there. So make your market is really the point. Make your market. And then once you've made your market, now you have a reason to where, okay, if I have 10X going out the door, and I know that over at GoDaddy's marketplace, they have 60 million eyeballs or 60 million paid users, then okay, I have a reason, because now we can put a ROI attachment to it. So that's a little different there than saying, okay, well, we need to go out and target this marketplace, let's go. And then you've allocated all kinds of funds and resources to it, and you don't get anything back. Because chances are, as a third party, you're probably not going to get anything back unless you have that marketing and you have that presence already there, brand awareness.
I really like the order that you laid out there, which is basically like you got to get demand first.
Correct.
And people have multiple opinions on how you get demand, right? Like one of the ways to do demand generation is telesales, right?
Yeah.
Telesales, cold email, social touches. Like you take this whole thing and you put it in outreach and you hire 10 people and you do that. That's one way. I prefer audience-focused content marketing to build brand. People see it that as like, oh, it's not going to happen fast if I do it that way. And they're wrong. I
agree with
that. You have to call it a long-term strategy because it is a more sustainable long-term strategy for sure if you keep going. But I've never had an instance where it doesn't create better short-term results than the alternative that I said before. It's gonna get you both, but you have to think long-term when you create the content, because if your content is, hey, 20% off, come buy my thing, or my thing's so great, or XYZ, do this new feature, it's not gonna hit. It's too forward. You gotta give people the information. I mean, this is super basic. Give people the information. Let them digest it. Adds credibility. This blog was super helpful. Where did it come from? This brand. Click the brand. Look at their homepage. See the value prop. Oh, that looks cool. That's something that I need. I'll book a demo. Is a super easy, straightforward concept to grasp, but for some reason we would rather call or email, set a meeting with someone that barely knows what we do and hope that that's the right way. And it's all about how is the buyer getting to you?
Absolutely.
Are they coming to you or are you going to them is the biggest difference between whether or not you're going to close that deal.
Flip that a little bit because I dig that, but my mantra is you got to meet that customer where they're at. I would rather, instead of having the customer come to me, which I understand, that pull marketing, but if in fact my product is going to help an MSP grow its practice and there's 20 other competitive products, I got to give them a reason. Got to give him a reason to knock on the door. So what I always found is, I go back to what you said. I love the recipe. Create the demand by exposing the real problem. So again, there's a whole bunch of competitors out there. Yes, let them run the promotions. Let them run the 20% off, whatever the case may be, or the 30-day trials. I would rather focus on the problem and then have proof, social proof from real people, not paid actors, that's going to come on, get them on video, get their testimony. If you want their number, call them. We somewhere along the line, when you talk about SaaS sales is sales. Sales is sales. It did you so much well when you were doing like door to door, when you had somebody that could vouch for you, say, oh, by the way, down the street, they use our product. But then the guy could call the guy down the street and be like, yeah, I love this guy. Now your reputation just got you in the door. Same thing, I believe, applies to SaaS, to where, yes, great, you got a great product, but the 20% off that you offer me today, it doesn't do anything for my business. Sure, if I'm just selling on price, which that is a price tactic. If I'm just selling on price, great, but that's very short term. What's going to make that customer stay over 30 days or 90 days? That's the thought in my head once I'm going to our marketplace. If you're talking sales enablement, we're talking, just like you said, hey, let's look at the long-term view on this. More than 6 months, because our relationship with the marketplace that we put it in is going to depend more than 6 months. And we're going to have to count for revenue a longer period than just 6 months. So that's how I go into it. Are we going to be able to keep this client on board more than 6 months? And then let's lay out the life cycle, as far as the whole life cycle from start to finish. Okay, what does it look like? The onboarding process. What does it look like once they have it? The first 30 days. How much training do they need? So it's really more to look at it from the marketing perspective of not just, okay, well, this is what problem we solve, but okay, you got it now. here's all the great things we can do. And that learning experience, what I've seen, now you're talking about reducing your churn by simply educating and training your customer along that journey.
One thing you mentioned that was super cool is how critical the success function is.
Right.
And I see a lot of companies underinvesting there. It's
Absolutely.
super heavy on net new acquisition, and then they might have an AM structure, account management structure, maybe.
Right.
And then they have success people, but like if you look at, because the net news are certainly paid the highest, like if you look at the difference in the budget allocation, and recognize that the importance of those functions, some would argue that success is more important than net new acquisition. Right. So some would argue that, and I think that we're starting to understand that now as we look at, as companies, most companies moving to a type of recurring revenue model business, but absolutely, we don't see the investment follow suit based on that amount of importance. So like, right. One thing that I've been super interested in trying to figure out what's going on is that the salaries that were set, or at least the relative salary differences in 1995, still happen today. So sales gets paid the most. Yeah. Marketing's like below there, success like right below there, account management somewhere in the middle. But there's so much that's changed. Absolutely. The importance of the functions are way more in equality, I would say, but the salaries don't match up. I don't know if that's because we just haven't corrected for it yet, or haven't recognized, or what, or maybe I'm just crazy. Like, what do you? No,
not crazy.
Like, I know that problem is not. I wouldn't even say it's a problem. It's just a reality. Right. Like, is that going to ever get? Are we going to course correct on there, or you think we're going to stay the course?
Yeah, I believe the market is going to force us to really change things. And no discredit to anyone out there, but when you talk about, I'll go back to that same model we said earlier. I would prefer to hire 3 success agents than to have 3 of the SDRs out there that's actively calling outbound. And then I also would like to have someone that's inbound, focused specifically for inbound, not to sell, but more to nurture. So, and I think that's where, you're going to see it. If in fact you're going out there and you're educating people and you're saying, okay, well, here's the CTAs, if you want to do this, fine, we're here to help. And you're making yourself available, and that's really what it is. Responsiveness and availability really does come down to that play that you're going in the market with. When you say, okay, we're here to educate the market, to be a thought leader, if you want to use that term. Yeah. We want to set the course and the tone for our segment. Mm-hmm. If you take that step out there, you have to support your movement. To do that, you have to have people ready and willing and able to suit the demand. So SDR won't do that. But if I understand the feeling of the customer, meaning I could take that customer success rep, or I could take that customer support team, and that's what we're doing over here. We're training people to where, okay, you understand, be the customer for 30 days, be the customer. Mm-hmm. Try the software, put it in this play. Here's a hypothetical model, follow it. Once you understand everything and on that aspect, now 10x that, because once you have someone calling in here, here's the emotions we need to capture. We need to put them at ease. So in those agents right there, and that's why I'm so big on make sure your mindset is right. Again, good for the SDR as well, but when you're having someone that's calling you on an urgent proposition versus, okay, I'm selling you this, or I'm closing you, and it's on a like you said earlier, like give me something, but you're reversing that, you're going to have the right people in place to support when somebody's calling you and saying, help me. It's a total different conversation. Mm-hmm. Especially going back to my career, cybersecurity, you got somebody that's website that's just got hacked, they need some help. the best companies I've seen is the ones that react on a proactive basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Meaning, I put everything out there for you. You can self-service this if you want. However, we're 24/7. You can always call us. So, and that right there became your marketing ploy. Use that service as your marketing tool. And so go into the market, let people know about your marketing, because your competitors, you got 15 reviews over here saying your competitors don't even answer the phone. Or vice versa, going back to the model. Before I have that person in sales enablement, I'll make sure that he sits with those guys or the team to which we're going over what success really looks like. And then he's going to be the one to really look, this is the sticky point here. When you enable a certain marketplace, there's drivers there. There's triggers to which they're going to come to us, and there's a different sentiment that they need to take on. So, and to have a person in that role, they're going to be part marketer, part sales. Going back to what you said, as far as the salary structure, it's going to take some progressive to come in and say, okay, well, this part, sales is all performance, so we're not going to change that. Sales is all performance based. Yeah, you get 50% base or whatever the structure is, right? So I'm never going to change that way. But when you talk about where do I value any other tier, whether it's a business development that you're going to put in or versus marketing, I'm going to put my money more on marketing, and then I'm going to support them with success reps.
So you talked about, you mentioned mindset, and so I think we should like kind of pivot here, and let's go in that direction for the rest of the call, because I mean, there's a lot of places where we can take mindset, but like, what are you doing to always be, at your best? What are some things?
Well, personally, as far as what I try to do is, again, this is more of a ritual. I have good habits where, just like yourself, if it's snowing outside, blizzard outside, there's certain things you're just going to do automatic, and it becomes automatic. That's what it is, right? It's a habit. You're going to go to the gym. You're going to have your energy drink. But then at the same time, you have balance throughout the day. If I was to say in my business, what it is for the reps, or if I look at a certain SaaS company that we're going to help come into the United States market and go out there and penetrate, how are we going to do that? It's more so, okay, coaching is a big part of that. You have to spend time coaching, whether, again, you can do it in a classroom setting, but I love the intimate one-on-ones and making sure that there's communication, there's open floor communication. And being that I'm on a remote team, it's valuable to have a set schedule to where it's already there, you know what to expect. But on a personal level, I'm an advocate of motivation. I'm an advocate of meditation and prayer. Everybody has a different way of looking at that, but I believe it helps me a lot. So when I talk to entrepreneurs or founders that's getting into business, some of them think it's strange, or some of them don't know how to take it on. Mm-hmm. But I find they gravitate and understand that I have to start here before I start out there in the marketplace. Or let me look at it from a different perspective. And I think that goes into the marketing message too, when you start talking about how do you hone your message, or what is the story that we're going to put together. I got to start with where we're at. So in a nutshell, what am I doing with businesses? If I'm dealing with anything with coaching or sales, we take time to make sure that we focus on personal development. Personal development is going to be something where it's got to be a part of that whole recipe. How do you do that? It depends. It depends on the company. But the best things I've seen is a founder that's involved, a founder that's hands-on, and he pays attention.
Yeah, I mean, the way the CEO behaves sets the tone for the rest of the company. If the CEO is sales focused, the company is going to go in that direction. If the CEO is product focused, if the CEO rewards performance over, being a good person, that's what's going to happen. It's really just black and white there. So I think the kind of, to go back off of your point, it's like you gotta, especially when you're at the beginning, you gotta figure out yourself first. I think people go into business either for the wrong reasons or the things that they don't like, and it's no wonder when you get, you know, to 4 p.m. in the afternoon and you don't like what you're doing. It's got to be something where it feeds you energy.
It's got to be more than money too.
It's got to be. You got to have a place where you want to go, and that can be to, you know, to make a change, to impact people, to get maybe the business you're building as a stepping stone to a future business. You know what I mean? There's so many different reasons. You just gotta. You're not gonna get through it if you're not doing it for the right reasons. And the second thing that's been really working for me is just a serious routine.
Yeah. Those habits.
Paired with having a routine of getting out of a routine, if that makes sense. I'll go through cycles where maybe like somewhere between 10 and 21 days where I'm going hard 7 days a week, you know?
Right.
You know, gym every morning, getting in there, do it like, you know, doing the LinkedIn thing for a little while, some focus work, got meetings. The whole thing is structured out, and that can be from, you know, wake up at 4:50 in the morning, go to bed at 10 at night, and besides the exercise, you were hustling, you know? But inside of those pieces, you either have to have small outlets to get out, which then creates creativity. So like I get very narrow into the work. And then the second that I go and take a 15-minute walk is when I have the breakthrough idea.
Absolutely. The creativity.
So it's breaking that pattern. It's also when outside of that like 21 day, if you go to you have the micro 15-minute walks, but you need a macro too. So whether that's travel or changing the environment or changing something up, that creates the potential for you to have make that connection in your brain that you didn't have before.
Right.
So
right.
I try, and whether it's for business or for fun, to put myself in new environments to encourage those types of, you know, creative moments to happen.
Absolutely.
Those are some of the things that have been working for me.
Yeah, I'll go back to that same point, man. You know, I did the 5-5-5 for a little while, and it turned into a 4-4-4. So just like you, I'm up at 4:50 every morning, sometimes earlier than that, sometimes 3, and just hitting it. And I find that my most creative time, because I got the kids going on, my most creative time is between 3 and 6. Mm-hmm. And then I'm out the door, or I'm getting into it. You know, I'm in this hustle. But just like you said, you know, once you have a structure, I know when to pull off a little bit. Like you said, you know, come off the brake just a little bit, go into it. Come off the gas. If I need to take a break or something, okay, good. You know, walk down the street, little micro things, right? But I find the most, as far as my creativity and my thought process, especially when I'm in Florida, the most relaxing part of the day is going to the beach, being in nature, and reconnecting. So once you reconnect, I'm thinking, I'm brainstorming. And also at the same time, you know, getting in, mingling with other people, you know, again, that's the part of the sales part of things, right? Mm-hmm. You're going out networking, getting in those shows, getting into the meetings. Or simple exercises, you know, social experiments, going into the library or going, just meeting strangers and just asking them about what's going on with them. It gets me back in tune of my sales process. That's how you sell. You know, you go out and you find problems, and you don't throw up on people when you show up at the door. You're there to learn about what's going on. So going back to that same point, and that's what every aspect of going to market, the go-to-market strategy is. You want to understand your market as much as possible, and you need to find out where you can fit, whether it's the product, whether it's the message. The bigger the gap, the easier to fit.
Yeah.
That's my job. I got to find out. So to your point, I love when CEOs are the example. If you're a walking example, it makes it easier because there's no excuse. So I love seeing the fact that, you know, if in fact prayer is something, if in fact meditation is something, okay, make it for your whole team. It might not be something where you can do it together, but at least there's a routine there. And then it's not always about business. Once you take that break, we're people, and people buy from people. Mm-hmm. We have a marketing voice, but we got to be people at the end of the day. And sometimes we lose that because we're so deep in the product. We're so deep in trying to understand how to make it better, or improvements, or raise capital. We're all people, man. That's it at the end of the day.
That is a great way to put it, man.
Awesome.
So we really appreciate you joining, and
Same here, man.
I'm sure we'll be talking soon.